uh, creating livelihoods for their families and building the economy. They waste time taking hard drugs and drinking killer brews. It's a nationwide problem. But starting recently, the National Security Council has determined that this problem of narcotic drugs, psychotropic substances, and killer brews is no longer just a social problem. It is no longer just an economic burden to the country. It is now an existential threat to the sustainability of our country. It is our view as the country's security managers that unless we completely destroy the capabilities of drug traffickers and those who manufacture killer brews, our country's population is going to be altered in a major and dramatic manner. And unless we stop these vices now and conclusively, 10, 20, 30 years from now, we will not have a generation that can take up civic responsibilities. We will not have journalists, we will not have police officers, we will not have farmers and teachers, nurses, and all the other people that build a country. And for that reason, we have declared that those who manufacture, transport, distribute, and even consume hard drugs and killer brews and psychotropic substances, those that follow in that category are enemies of Kenya, just like terrorists, bandits, and organized criminals. And we are going to use all the resources that Kenya has. We are going to use all the security infrastructure that this country has to crush, defeat, and overcome those that are engaged in destroying future generations by enslaving our children in hard drugs and killer brews. And therefore, each county has been directed to generate a county-specific operational plan. And here in Machakos, we've already mapped out what we need to do. Already quite some progress has been made. We have arrested nearly 300 people in the last 3 days. We have done 765 raids across Machakos County. We have apprehended motor vehicles that have been used to transport drugs and illicit, including counterfeit alcohol that is dangerous to public health. Ladies and gentlemen, we are not going to do a 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, 1 year operation. This operation is a perpetual and standing operation until this problem is eradicated in our country. So we will go all the way as long as it takes to make sure that we clean this country from the scourge of drugs and the effects that it has on public safety and public health. In that connection, we are introducing very stringent legislation. As you are aware, we have cancelled and closed down all alcoholic outlets that are licensed contrary to the law, especially the law relating to Alcoholic Drinks Control Act. And therefore, all alcoholic outlets within 300 meters to public amenities, including basic education institutions, must be closed. And all the licenses that were issued by the different county governments have been revoked as a national security measure. Secondly, we are going to introduce new laws. These laws will categorize those who manufacture, sell, distribute, and consume hard drugs, psychotropic substances, and illicit killer brews. We categorize them as dangerous criminals. and we will be prosecuting them using the most punitive measures that are ever found in our statute books. In other words, where we have placed terrorists, organized leaders of organized crime, including banditry, that's where we have placed those people who are engaged in this destructive business. Since this is a national security threat, we will not entertain any commercial, economic, or social interests to override the national security interests. And therefore, we are not against businesses, we are not against the people enjoying life, but we have a duty to protect the nation from itself, because we can destroy ourselves through our freedom and through our commercial interests. This is purely a law enforcement measure. It is not linked to politics of any side. It is not linked to business and all the other issues. And for that reason, the operation must be left entirely to law enforcement agencies. The multi-agency teams that are mandated to enforce the law are the only one who are allowed to take part in this operation. We don't want to see politicians engaged in operational issues, conducting raids. That is not their work. Let our brothers and sisters who are elected leaders serve the people according to their mandate, which includes building schools, hospitals, providing water and electricity. They must stay away from law enforcement and leave it exclusively to law enforcement agencies. I also want to underscore that other than this problem, we have a problem of land fraud in this county. Certain parts of this county, especially Athi River, Mavoko, and the adjoining areas, Kamulu and others, where land fraudsters conniving and in cahoots with corrupted public officials have engaged in fraudulent issuance of title deeds that are not genuine. Secondly, the invasion of people's private property by hired goons who are paid to unleash violence to genuine landowners. And there are others who have invaded large tracts of public land. And therefore, we are going also to come heavily to enforce the law, to get rid of all organized criminal gangs that are terrorizing the people, including genuine landowners of private and public land. We know some of them are able to succeed because they are in cahoots with some crooked officials from the Ministry of Lands and the Survey of Kenya. Some are in cahoots with a few crooked law enforcement officials, including Ngao officers and police officers. And therefore, we will categorize all the culprits, the land grabbers, the organized criminal gangs, the corrupted public officials, and the corrupted law enforcement officials. Will categorize them as one. They are all criminals, and we will get rid of these criminals in the shortest time possible. We have a challenge of the transportation of aliens through this county, especially from the Kitui-Machakos highway, but also other smaller routes in between Tala, Machakos, and some of these aliens pose a threat to our national security. And therefore, I have directed our security agencies in this county to upgrade their surveillance and law enforcement along the main highways that is the Kitui Machakos Highway, the Mombasa Nairobi Highway, the Athi River Namanga Highway, but also other smaller routes in between where these criminals are perpetuating their crime. And that also includes the Thika Garissa Highway. It is of concern to us also that a national asset, namely the standard gauge railway, built by the sweat and the money of the people of Kenya, is being vandalized by criminals who are looking for scrap metal to sell to scrap metal dealers. I want to put on notice all scrap metal dealers and those criminals who are destroying the critical infrastructure that is our railway, so that to get a few coins, they must look for something else to do. I have gazetted the standard gauge railway and indeed the entire railway network, together with other critical infrastructures like the Thwake Dam, Sasumwa Dam, Dakaine Dam, all the major electric supply cables and pylons. I have categorized all that critical infrastructure, including the oil pipeline, to come now under the protection of the Protected Areas Act, which is the most severe legislation. And any person, therefore, who is found without reason in or within the premises of the standard gauge railway or the other critical infrastructure which I have mentioned, including critical electric supply lines, critical water reservoirs serving large amounts of people with water, power, and transportation. Any person found within those premises without any reasonable cause will be dealt with in accordance with the Protected Areas Act, Cap 204 of the laws of Kenya. That law empowers law enforcement officers to use force to remove people from those facilities. And it's a summary procedure that is applied there. There is no room for discussions and no other. It's the same law that protects all the other highly sensitive security installations, including the State House. So it's not a joke. Wale watoto na vijana wanaenda kutafuta chuma pale kwa reli ya kuuza. Sheria imetumika sasa, ambayo ni sheria ya sehemu ambazo zimepewa ulinzi mkali na maafisa wetu wa polisi na wale wengine ambao wanasimamia sehemu hizo wako na ruhusa wa kisheria kutumia nguvu kuondoa watu wale, kwa sababu wewe ukiwa mwizi wa chuma, wewe ukiwa mwizi wa scrap metal, unafikiri unaiba ile chuma ama unaiba ile bolt ama ile nut ndio upewe shilingi 200, lakini vile unavyofanya pale ni kuhatarisha maisha ya Wakenya wale ambao wanatumia gari ya moshi, kwa sababu ukihitilafiana na ule muundo msingi wa reli, kuna uwezekano wa ile reli kuanguka. Na unajua reli inabeba watu wengi na vifaa vingi vya dhamani. Kwa hivyo hakuna tofauti ya mwenye anahitilafiana na usalama wa reli na magaidi wa Al-Shabaab na wale magaidi wengine sugu. So the SGR, the railway network, critical water reservoirs, critical electricity pylons are now not only protected by our critical infrastructure police unit SIPU and the water protection unit of our National Police Service, but also they are now protected under the Protected Areas Act. Na kwa ufupi, hiyo sheria ni kali. Tafadhali, watoto watoke huko. Kama uko na ndugu ama rafiki unajua anaendanga kutafuta pale, atoke pale. Kwa sababu hiyo sheria hakuna maswali, hakuna procedure. Ukipatikana pale na wewe sio engineer, hujatumwa hapo na Kenya Railways ama kutengeneza dam fulani hapo, you are not an engineer, tunakusafirisha unaenda kwa shetani direct. So that is how serious it is. Hakuna procedure sijui ya nini sijui because that law is extremely, it's one of the laws that allow us to move fast to neutralize a threat. And you know, some of these threats, even bad people, the enemies of Kenya, if we don't become very vigilant, can come and hurt us using our critical infrastructure. So I've directed the county security team on the Machakos side to be very vigilant and support the railway police unit to support our SGR and other critical infrastructure. I've just come from Makueni and I've passed the same message. I think the longest part of SGR is in Makueni County, 248 kilometers. Again, the teams in Taita Taveta and the other counties all the way to Mombasa must support the SGR as our critical infrastructure and the other critical infrastructure we have. Kwa hivyo, mimi sitaki kuongea kuzidi hapo. Hapa Masaku na Makueni kuna shida kidogo, kuna wazee wengine na vijana wanaume watu wazima wanaenda kusumbuana na watoto wa shule. Na sheria imekataa mtu mzima kuenda kusumbua kimapenzi mtoto ambaye hajahitimu miaka. Pia nimeambia wenzangu wakuwe wakali kwa wale watu wazima wanaharibia watoto maisha yao. Wengine nafikiri ni hiyo bangi na miadarati, wanaharibu hata watoto ambao wako na uhusiano nao wa kifamilia. Mambo ambayo yalikataliwa mpaka na shetani. Unaona mtu mzima ile mambo anafanya ni ile hata shetani mwenyewe hawezi fanya. Sumbua watoto wa shule, kulala na mtoto ambaye ni mtoto yako, mtoto ya ndugu yako. Hii mambo imekataliwa katika sheria ya Kenya na hata sheria ya mbinguni imekataa hii maneno. So wanaume wa Machakos mkiwaona mwambie mtu atafute mtu mzima ako na ID na mtu ambaye si mwanafunzi, amefikisha miaka na ametoka shule. Kama ako shule ni huko university, huyo ni mtu mzima. Na hata hiyo wafanye urafiki ambayo ni wa kihiari, sio kilazima. Tena ikiingia lazima inakuwa offense, inaitwa rape. So kuna hiyo maneno hapo tuchunge, na watu tu wakuwe wastaarabu. We should be an organized, respectable society, a community that has morals, that has people who know the boundaries. Watu wazima wakifanya mambo yao, sisi hatuulizi, bora sio ya lazima. Lakini maneno ya watoto hapana. Watoto wote waende shule, lazima. All children must be in school. And they must be protected from violence, including violence from their own family members who are using that advantage to harm our children. That is the biggest resource we have as a nation. They are the people who will take over this country and run it when all of us who are standing here will be gone. So, ni hayo tu kwa sasa.